Hello and good afternoon, early evening to everyone tuning in. Welcome to a special edition here on FTSN, the first episode of Fins Talk Extra Time. Just this will be what we'll use when there's something special to talk about, where we just want to get something off our chest. It's like, hey, it's no specific show. Let's just jump on. As you see, this is not pregame. This is not postgame. This is extra time. And FinStanza and I usually avoid each other during the off season,
We give
apparently.
people a break.
That's right. But because we're usually on postgame, pregame. But today, got plenty to talk about. We were like, hey, let's just do the show tonight. Let's do something. First off, congratulations to Steve Malloy, who's usually on at 7:30 Eastern time on Real Talk Fins Talk. He welcomed the new, a beautiful granddaughter, Beatrice. So God bless and congratulations to him and his family with the new addition. So we are live to talk about not only the breaking news that the Miami Dolphins and Jalen Ramsey, star corner, have agreed to part ways. Miami Dolphins will begin immediately looking for a team to make a trade. They have spoken to teams per Chris Grier, but obviously a deal is not close yet. And obviously, we're going to talk Chris Grier press conference. Well, welcome everyone who's tuning in. If you're new to FTSN, hit that like and subscribe button. You got DSG in the house already. You got Ben F. Of course, he finds FinStanza anywhere. I haven't seen Ben in a while, but FinStanza's on. I mean, it's like he popped right in.
He was there last Thursday.
There you go.
A great show. We had a great show last week.
There you go. No, it was. And you guys come the overtime crew back on. It was cool to see you guys in there. It's been great content here on FTSN all the way around. I mean, really, the OTC crew with Josh Wingate and Coach Vogel. I'm a part of that show as well. We had I don't know if anybody saw that show, but we had a blast last Sunday with the mock draft. It went way different than I thought it would be. And something's going on back there. Tristan's screaming there, so forgive me.
Way off the board.
Well, it was crazy, right? I mean, you would probably go with the popular picks, but right away, pick 2, Jackson Dart going to Cleveland. And then even though the Giants go with Jameis Winston and Russell Wilson, they draft Shadir Sanders. We were going pick by pick. Everyone had an option there. Anyway, the Miami pick, when I had the Miami pick on the board, I was stuck between 2 guys and 2 guys only. And that was Will Johnson out of Michigan and Jedi Barron out of Texas. And, of course, I went with Johnson at that pick, even though I would have absolutely been okay with going with Barron, but Will Johnson, because I'm like, hey, who do we have other than Jalen Ramsey? I know we got Cater, Storm Duck, Cam Smith. Cam Smith has not shown anything. He hasn't shown anything. Vic Fangio treated him bad. Well, Vic Fangio doesn't look so wrong anymore. Storm Duck, he's an undrafted free agent. There's some promise there, but we don't know how that's going to pan out. And Kohu is, he's a 3rd, 4th guy. We don't have anybody behind Jalen Ramsey. So I went with Will Johnson there because Will Johnson's a legitimate next to Barron. Now, I love Barron, but those 2 guys right there are legitimate number 1 type guys that could be your number 2. Well, lo and freaking behold, just a few days later, the breaking news that the Miami Dolphins have placed Jalen Ramsey on the trade block. Andrew Harris, welcome to the show, my man. Appreciate you tuning in as we get more people joining in here. But FinStanza, before we get into the reasons, before we get into the impact, how this impacts the draft, how this impacts the roster, the cornerback position, all of that, your immediate reaction when you saw the news come in that the Dolphins and Jalen Ramsey have agreed to go ahead and find a trade partner and make a deal and get Ramsey out of here after 2 years?
The first thing that hit me was, is Stephen Ross senile? Because he wrote, and we were live on that post-game show, and I'm the one who read it to you, that they would be moving forward with Chris Grier and Mike McDaniel, but the status quo will not be accepted. They talked about how they want to win. But if you look at how the offseason has gone and the way that they're signing players and the way that the feel of the team, it makes it seem that either Mike McDaniel and especially Chris Grier don't care about what happens this year in the sense that they're not worried about the ramifications of what might happen if they have a bad season, or they know something that we don't, and that, or Ross is just content with making money at the gate and not about winning. Literally, the first person I thought of when I heard about this wasn't Jalen Ramsey. It wasn't the ramifications of what it will do to the Dolphins. The first person I thought of was Stephen Ross, and basically saying, this is the same guy who banged the table for having stars in Miami. Jalen Ramsey, Tyreek Hill, and Teron Armstead, you wanted to win in 2022, 2023. Tried to go Tampa to get Tom Brady. You wanted Deshaun Watson back when he was having his issues, but he was still a star in the league at the time. You wanted to go after all these players. You tampered. You lost a draft pick. And you're now saying that your number one player on the team, from a skill perspective, a 7-time Pro Bowler, who you just extended for $74 million last season, who didn't ask for a trade, didn't ask for a restructure. Oh, we're going to trade him. So that's the first thing that came to my mind is, what is this owner thinking as a football owner? He does not seem like somebody who knows what he's doing, or somebody who has said to us that he wants a winner, but he truly does not. Because the way that he's allowing this team to be run is not the sign of a team that wants to win. Right? The Stephen Ross we know would have opened up the floodgates, opened up the wallet, and did everything he could to sign whoever he could, even though it wasn't a great free agent class, or would have told Chris Grier, go make another big trade. And I was the guy who said he was not going to trade Tyreek Hill, because Tyreek Hill gives them the best chance to win on the offensive side of the ball, as long as Tua is his quarterback. So I thought they were going to do more in the offseason to make this team better. It doesn't surprise me that they didn't, because I'm convinced, and I said this when the rumor came out, that I'm convinced that a lot of these players, as much as we say they want to be here, who wants to be a part of this franchise? They go back to Reggie McKenzie losing the GM opportunity in Tennessee, but still going there for a lateral move. Everyone knows that this team is going nowhere this season. I feel bad for the person who's going to be drafted here. The best thing that could possibly happen to the Dolphins this year is they get off to an 0-4 start. Things are so miserable that they fire McDaniel on the spot and they pull a Joe Philbin, because this feels very Joe Philbin-like. So when I heard about the Jalen Ramsey thing, I'm surprised. I don't believe Chris Grier. I believe Jalen Ramsey wants out. I don't believe that it's a mutual thing. I believe he doesn't want to I don't think he wants to hurt the stock value of Jalen Ramsey, and he's saying it's mutual. But if I'm Jalen Ramsey, I wouldn't want to be on this franchise anymore. Why would I be on this team? When I got here, I had Xavier Howard on the other side. I had Tyreek Hill. I had Jalen Waddle. I had a healthy Tua Tagovailoa. What am I doing here? What am I doing here? I don't believe Chris Grier. I don't believe him. Jalen Ramsey wants out.
So let's see. Okay, Steve Malloy is there. Awesome to see Steve there in the comments. DSG, he'll take 2 number ones for Cheetah. That will make Bobby happy. Stanza is back. I love it. Very cool. And I'm sorry, let me read Steve's comment here again. Congratulations to Steve. He usually is on at the 7:30 mark for Real Talk FinStanza, but he just welcomed a new member to the family. Beautiful granddaughter. He says, if we believe anything, Grier says, I have an oceanfront property to sell you in the Sahara Desert. Well, so what, we do have Chris Grier's press conference that he decided to have today that left more questions than answers. But just to start that off, at least when it comes to Jalen Ramsey, he said, after a couple of weeks of discussions between ourselves internally and Jalen and his representation, we've decided that it was probably in the best interest for all parties to move forward. I will say these decisions aren't done quickly, and they're not taken lightly because we spent a lot of time this offseason working through this, talking through things. At the end of the day, Jalen did not ask for a trade. So we went through the process and just felt that after numerous conversations and then talking last week with Jalen and his agent, that it was in the best to move forward, that it was best to move forward, and it was in the best interest of the Miami Dolphins and for Jalen Ramsey. He said, somebody asked, do you expect to trade with Jalen Ramsey before the draft for a pick or other assets? He says he doesn't know. Trades come together at all different times. You've seen that before the draft. You see that before the draft, day of the draft, during the draft. I think A.J. Brown was during the draft when it happened. So when it happens, it will happen. If it doesn't, we'll deal with it then. I don't know how much you could take from that, because how can you talk to someone, and this person does not ask for a restructure. This person does not ask to be traded. This is a captain of your football team. This is one of the top players in the NFL at his position. This is one of your better players. You're looking at him. You're having conversations maybe about the future of this football team. Maybe it's not him saying, I want to move on. Maybe it's him saying, hey, man, we need to move on from some guys. I don't think these guys are good pieces for us to move forward with. And they're telling him we can't move forward with those guys. And he's like, well, I don't know how this is going to work. And they said, well, we can move forward from you because your contract is actually movable. I told you earlier on the phone when he says it here in the press conference when they bring up Tyreek Hill. Are you planning on moving from Tyreek? No, I'm not planning on moving from Tyreek. I'm paraphrasing. I don't have it right here. I will find it in a bit. But he says, unless you're offering me 2 first-round picks, I'm not listening. Bullcrap. What's the point of listening? Because if you trade him, it's a giant cap hit. Nobody's calling you because of the cap situation that comes with it, and he's a pain in the ass. Let's be real. Who's going to give you 2 first-round picks for Tyreek Hill? Nobody. If he was clean as a whistle and he was a leader and didn't quit on his football team halfway through a game when there was nothing left to play for, he could have played for his teammates. Maybe then a team would say, yeah, we could use him on our football team. No one's giving you 2 first-round picks. You're lying. You know that. Chris Grier, you're not that stupid. He's not that stupid to think someone's going to give him 2 first-round picks. He's saying that because he's trying to make it to tell you it's a fantasy. We can't trade him because nobody wants him. We're stuck with him. And we gave him an extension for nothing. So the Dolphins, at this point in time, are going to get stuck with a player who's a headache, not just off the field, but in the locker room and on the field at this point. And they're going to trade a player who's played his ass off every week and didn't ask for anything, probably, but I'm pretty sure may have said, hey, I'm not, and this is just me saying, I'm not saying this is exactly what he said, but he may have said, hey, I don't know if we could play with a quarterback like that, or I don't know if I could play with another player or receiver like that. We need to find people who want to be here. He started putting his foot down, and maybe they say, hey, man, reality, your contract is easier to move. If you don't feel like these guys are good for the team, we can't move them. They can't move Tua right now. They can't move Tyreek right now. They could move Ramsey. So Christopher Jones, if they don't part with Hill, they'll owe him a ton at the end of the year, guaranteed. Fins may be indeed stuck. Hill is a human time bomb or a ticking time bomb. Bobby better not celebrate all these cheetah touchdowns this year. If cheetah is if my mic working, I don't know why it sounds lower. If Tyreek Hill is a Dolphin and he's actually scoring touchdowns because he didn't score a lot last year, I'll celebrate all I want. DSG. Because I'm a Dolphins fan. I could say what I want to about any player on this football team. It doesn't stop me being a Dolphin fan if he wears that helmet. But let's be real. Let's stop living in the fantasy that Tyreek Hill did not quit on this football team. He did. He quit. Taron Armstead said it. Calais Campbell's called it out. The veterans of this team called it out. And now we're losing to Jalen Ramsey, who I'm sure that's one of the reasons why. Okay, he quit on this team. I don't care what he said after the game. I don't give a damn. Players get mad. People get mad. Evan says things. I say things. People say things when they get mad. They don't mean in the end. They say, man, I'm sorry. I messed up. But okay, it's over. That happens. I can forgive that. What I don't forgive if it's quitting on your team. Okay, I'm out, and I leave halfway through the show when Evan's still there or something because I'm just done. Then you know what? You quit on me, you're done. So he quit. But He preserved himself. Smart man. He quit. He's a quitter. He quit on himself. He quit on the team. He's not a smart man. Headache. He's a headache. There? Did it glitch out? I'm still here. Okay. Just want to make sure. But anyway, what do you think in your mind, in your head? I know it's a hard ask. What can you legitimately get, do you think, for a Jalen Ramsey? Because I know what I think. I'm not saying I know what I would want. Everybody would want the highest pick. Of course, like Chris Grier says, for Tyreek Hill, he would want 2 first-round picks. Talent alone, yeah, that should net you 2 first-round picks, right? Tyreek is Tyreek on the field when he's nothing but Tyreek on the field. He's one of the best. Often you got to count everything else, though. Jalen Ramsey, on the other hand, one of the best players in the NFL. When we traded for him, do you remember what we gave up?
We gave Hunter Long. We gave up Hunter Long in the third.
Hunter Long in a 3rd-round pick for one of the best corners in football. So after the last few seasons, now a couple seasons later, you're asking for it. What do you expect realistically for Jalen Ramsey?
Realistically, I expect to either not trade him, or it will involve us taking a pick. To get a pick, you're lucky you'll maybe be able to get another 3rd, maybe a 2nd if you're able to trade. You might be able to trade a 3rd and Jalen Ramsey for a 2nd, but you're going to have to give up a pick and Jalen Ramsey to get a higher pick. I don't think Grier is quick enough or he might, if he's smart, because at this point they're going to have to take a cap hit no matter what.
Yeah,
he's already put it out there. No trade value of Jalen Ramsey will be higher than on draft day. If he sees someone he truly wants in the draft and he sees a certain run, like I would trade Jalen Ramsey to move up in the 2nd, or to try to get if I could get a late 1st, or I can get an early 2nd and move 48 in Jalen Ramsey to get somebody who's almost like a late 1st-round pick, I would do that. I doubt it's realistic, but I would trade him at the draft. At this point, delaying this will only hurt his trade value. His trade value is highest now. I would do it on draft day. Like I would definitely do it on draft day, or I would do it if I can somehow move one of my 5th or one of my 4ths to get into that a 3rd round, because I don't like the fact that the Dolphins are not picking between, I believe it's 48 and 98 or 96. I can't remember what it is. There's a huge gap there because they gave up that 3rd round, one of the 3rd round picks because of Jalen Wright when they moved up to get Jalen Wright last year. So I want at least 4 picks in the top 100. So I would use Jalen Ramsey to do it. Like I would do it to try to move up in the draft this year. So if it meant I can get an early 3rd, or try to take one of my 4th and move up to get another 2nd, that's what I would do. And number 1, I would not trade him to anyone I would not trade him to anybody within the AFC. I want Jalen Ramsey in the NFC. I don't want to see him this year.
Anthony Manzano in the house says he disagrees a little bit. I think we could get a late 1st-round pick for a team that needs a corner in the late 1st, maybe Buffalo or Detroit. Again, Anthony, talent-wise, right? I mean, in talent-wise, you'd say, yeah, man, you should be able to get a 1st-round pick for someone like a Jalen Ramsey. But Mick puts points right below you there, that the Rams only got from Miami a 3rd-round pick and a 3rd-string tight end in Hunter Long. So this is 2 years later. So you can't expect anything more. Now, could they package maybe, like if maybe package a pick and Jalen Ramsey and then move up into the 1st round? Maybe, right? Chris Grier did say that because they asked that question, and I'm going to go like some of the things I've highlighted here from his press conference. But he did talk about that when they asked him, would you, with all the needs that you have, with Miami now, because now it's not just a left guard. It's not just D tackle. It's not just cornerback 2. It's cornerback 1 now. You got a lot of needs. So, are you planning on trading down to gain more picks? He said, yeah, we're going to explore that. They think you're going to get a good pick at 13. He said, but if there's a player that's basically paraphrasing, player falling, they will move to look to trade up. if they have to, if it's to get that player, because they believe there's enough quote unquote, street free agents available post draft that they could help fill their needs. Let me see. Anthony says, well, people forget is the reason why the Rams only got what they did is because Ramsey had no trade clause in his contract when he got traded to them. One moment.
Okay, I'll continue.
Sorry, guys. That was people coming in and out there. I'm waiting.
Don't worry. I like the dead silence.
It was an impromptu show. It was an impromptu show, so people aren't prepared on the other side of it. But it's all good.
But for me, in the end, one thing that Chris Grier did say today, which is he usually goes into the draft with most of his players set. Like last year when he went to go pick Chop Robinson, we were all had different ideas on what we wanted, whether it was a Graham Barton, whether we wanted a Jared Verse, whether we wanted a
Braden Fisk,
whether it was Chop Robinson. In the end, with the way Ramsey and Chubb were injured, Chop Robinson ended up being a very good pick. But most of the position at corner was pretty much settled. The position at safety was pretty much settled. Linebacker, settled. D-tackle, somewhat settled, not really, but then you end up getting Calais Campbell. Offensive line was there. It just we didn't love the way it looked. Wide receivers were there. Running backs, you added Jalen Wright. You had Achane and Mostert and Wilson. He's going into the draft this year with no true starting safety, no true starting corner outside of Ramsey, who you're probably going to trade, no the starting real nose tackle outside of Benito Jones, who was poor last year, no tackle next to Sealer, no starting left guard, no starting guard, because obviously Eichenberg is not a starter. And so you don't have you're missing a lot of your starting positions. So he's going into the draft looking for all these key needs. So he needs as many top round picks as he can. So if whatever he has to do, the 7th, the 6th, the 5th, package whatever you need to. If he's smart, I wouldn't be surprised either. If he sees something he likes, get a pick for next year. I wouldn't necessarily do it, but if he has to, they need to fill as many day one starters from this draft as possible. As much as possible. They need, I'll tell you this right now, they have 10 picks. 6 of them have to start.
So
they have to be rotational.
You got a great point. You have a great point. And Christopher brings up Cam Smith. Chris Grier did bring that up. Let me find what he said about. I could paraphrase it, but very quick about Cam Smith. The question was, how would you evaluate your draft history with the 3 biggest positions in the league: corner, D tackle, and guard? This is Chris Grier's response. I think defensive tackle. I think Christian is probably the biggest one. The last time we went early on a guy, I think we've drafted a few mid or late that have been okay, but Christian is probably the biggest one. Corner, Xavier Howard. It's probably the best one that I've ever drafted. I've had a lot of success with some late round guys. Cater Kohu's undrafted. This is what he says about Cam Smith. Cam Smith needs to come through at the end of the day. He's got to stay healthy and he's got to be on the field. He has shown some flashes, but this is a very big year. He knows what's expected because we can't hold his hand and wait for him anymore. So, and of course, he goes on talking about offensive line, offensive guard. He just talking about what he's done there. But that right there, I highlighted that part, what he said about Cam Smith. He needed to come through at the end of the day, can't hold his hand anymore. A lot of people went at Vic Fangio, what was said about Vic Fangio, about Cam Smith, about not being ready, not the right guy, whatever. They went that route. It obviously in the 2 seasons has not turned out the way they wanted it to be. We could say why he was drafted. We know that the rumor was because his son went to school with him and all this whatnot. We know that if you put on the film, there were some flashes on tape that you saw. Okay, this guy could be decent, but nothing to write home about. But so far, he has not been anywhere near decent or worth the value that he was taken. And now you're relying on him possibly to make a big step. Yeah, you more than likely could come away with pick 13 if you stay there with a damn good corner. There is legitimate. Those 2 top guys, obviously, Hunter's Hunter, but Hunter more than likely is going in that top 5, right? But then you got Will Johnson and Barron from Johnson from Michigan and Barron from Texas. Those two guys right there are legitimate number 1 guys. But now you're praying and relying that Cam Smith is going to be your number 2 guy. And so obviously Miami doesn't feel like he like the fans, they see that he has not stepped up, and they're going to have to pray and rely on him to do so. I want to find what you just said about. Okay, here we go. Because you made a great point about the type of players they need to find. And it looks like that's where they're going with. And I do know that Mike McDaniel has brought this up. Let me see here. They asked about. Let me get to the question, and then I could read the answer because I'm. Somebody asked him, with apparent needs at corner, guard, and D tackle still unfilled, are you going to have to, or are you willing to adjust your preferred BPA approach and consider more strongly players at positions of obvious need? His response, yeah, it's always been a balance with that because sometimes the best player is a need. Sometimes, like we've talked in the past, when I've said JJ Watt, we had defensive players. If he's there, are you going to pass on him? But for us, the draft kind of aligns with the position of need for us that people perceive and what's on our roster right now. This is what I've highlighted for what you brought up. For us, we think at 13, there will be good players there that will be NFL-ready players, but will also fill a need. He says they need players that are ready right now. That's not in there, but I know he did say that they want players that we're going to need NFL-ready players. There is no like, hey, let's hope this guy's ready. These guys are going to be forced into playing, and that's a good thing. So we just have to be right on the person and character of those guys that we bring in here. So I know something highlighted that was interesting about what he said about QBs. But so at least from what he said, he's with you. The Dolphins are aligned in the sense of they have to come away in this draft, not just with one, but multiple players that could start day 1. So when you hear things like that, how does that make you feel?
That Chris Grier is basically playing Russian roulette with the Miami Dolphins, because when you look back at his draft history, and everything can change, always remember, is the best draft opportunity this guy had in his entire, because I don't count 2016, but if you count 2016 to 2025, his best year was 2020. And he selected in the first 2 rounds Tua Tagovailoa, Austin Jackson, and Noah Igbinoghene, where he felt he had needs, versus going with the best players in the draft at those picks, which were Justin Herbert, Justin Jefferson, and Jonathan Taylor. Okay? That just tells you. So he wants impact players. Like, I will tell you this now. One thing that I think was going to be difficult, when you said you were going to take Will Johnson, I understand why you want to take him. But I'm telling you this now. If Will Johnson's sitting there, and Tate McMillan is sitting there, and Ashon Gentry is sitting there somehow, some way, I may not take Will Johnson. I just may not. I might take the impact player that on that side of the ball, because then I would maybe have to go overpay for a Rasul Douglas or an Asante Samuel or whatever to beg them to come play here, because he talked about street free agents and how many there are. That doesn't mean they want to come play here. Just because someone is available doesn't mean they want to come play here. But I really hope that they go BPA throughout the draft and then figure out what they need to do. But I don't want them drafting for need. I honestly don't.
Well, I will say I'm with you on BPA. I've been with you on BPA.
Like, if Will Johnson, honestly, Will Johnson to me, because if that's how you have Tate McMillan, I understand you don't want to trade Tyreek Hill, but you could afford to trade Tyreek Hill if you get a Tate McMillan. You can't afford to trade him yet. But if you have a Tate McMillan on your team, you could trade Tyreek Hill. So if you have Will Johnson, you could probably get away with Jalen Ramsey, but then you better very quickly go draft another available corner, like in the 4th round or whatever, or you better go get right after the draft. You better be calling Asante Samuel or Rasul Douglas or someone like that again, or go beg Kendall Fuller to come back. I don't care, but you need to have a decent corner on that side of the ball. And remember, a rookie's a rookie. The difference is when you look at how good the Eagles' defense was last year, Bobby, and people look at how they drafted Cooper DeJean and who's the corner? I forget. I'm drawing a blank on the corner they got last year. Someone will remind me who they drafted. But they also had Darius Slay. They also had other veterans to support them. You bring in Will Johnson, who, if we know Jalen Ramsey, who's his support? Who's the veteran? There is no veteran on that secondary. You're expecting this guy. You're basically expecting this guy to swim on his own. That didn't work for Sauce Gardner. That didn't work for Sauce Gardner in year 1. He'll have a good individual year, but that will be good for. Also, you trade Jalen Ramsey. What are you telling Anthony Weaver? You better go get somebody. You honestly, if you are trading Jalen Ramsey, this is going to be you better basically go. I don't want to go best, but you better go high D because you better give Anthony Weaver a defense this year, or you're going to lose him next year. Or if I'm
you're more than likely going to lose him either way.
If I'm Anthony Weaver and you trade Jalen Ramsey and you don't go get me a Will Johnson and you don't get me a stud D tackle, why am I here? I might send up my resume. Why am I here? To be a lame duck defensive coordinator when you guys all clean house? Or is he is he going to buy his time, Anthony, where and say this is my chance to be a head coach in October, right? So honestly, I don't know what to think right now with him.
So,
honestly, I took I don't know if anyone here did. Did anyone take a Robaxa set before they came onto the show to put in the comments? Because all of our backs must have hurt. In my life, I have never seen a guy who said, we're more interested in winning than you are just to get you off our backs. Chris Grier, you have been here for 25 years. You have won 1 playoff game with Jay Fiedler in Indy in a tight football game. In 25 years of your standing in the Miami Dolphins franchise. You care about more winning, and you actually had the gall. He does this every press conference. And let me ask you something, Bobby. Are these two guys, these two gentlemen, Mike McDaniel and Chris Grier, they must be the worst press conference people I've ever seen in my life. They talk in circles. They talk to piss people off. People are more annoyed and less clear on the direction of this franchise. That's the thing, Bobby. It's basically Miami Dolphins fans are like people who land in a city for the first time without a roadmap, and they don't know how to get somewhere. That's every time I hear Chris Grier talk and I hear Mike McDaniel talk, I go, where are we? We're in no man's land. We know when you look at for example, you knew when you traded Jimmy Butler from the Heat, it was going to be a bit of a down, but you're going to try to be a young franchise. You're in the play-in, which is amazing considering, and you're going to try to rebuild your team. The Marlins are a young team that just doesn't invest, but you know who they are. The Panthers are going into the playoffs have been without Ekblad, without Matthew Tkachuk, but when they're ready for the playoffs, they're going to be ready and they're going to be a strong team. But you know who they are. When they were a finesse team, they traded away Huberdeau, they got Matthew Tkachuk, and they've completely changed the foundation of their franchise. Inter Miami, you know the face is Lionel Messi. Who are we, Miami Dolphins? And when he said, Bobby, he listed Tyreek Hill as one of his leaders. He mentioned Tyreek Hill before he mentioned Tua. What is this guy thinking?
He didn't mention Tua.
He didn't even mention Tua. And by the way, wouldn't it have helped if maybe Mike McDaniel was there? Like this press conference, and he also knows, Bobby, that he's hated by the fan base. He knows he's hurting his own franchise. He's not doing anything to make the franchise better because when somebody knows their time has come, they know and they admit when you are suffering from, and when you're suffering from something, the first way to overcome that issue is to admit that you have a problem. He's in denial. Because everyone knows if they bet a little too much on a game, or they drink a little too much, or they eat a little too much, or they do something that they're all suffering from a certain area they need to work on. He knows he's a bad general manager. He knows he's a bad executive. But he doesn't care, because as long as he has a job, until Stephen Ross fires him, why would he quit? This is fun for him, because he thinks he could just play, he can do whatever he wants and not face any consequences. Quinyon Mitchell, thank you, Mike.
So, very quick, because you brought up, McMillan. First off, you know how I feel about Genty. I love him. I think he's a great prospect. I know Josh Wingate is a little lower on him. I know about McMillan. I like McMillan. I will say though, me personally, again, BPA is based off your board, right? And if Miami's BPA might be different from Evan's BPA or my BPA or our draft board, that's why I wanted to go make sure and look, because I know there's if we're talking, because McMillan's a great player, and he might more likely go in top 10. He'd probably go to Arizona at the latest, right, in the first round, possibly. In our mock, where did he go? He went to Arizona in our mock, in the OTC mock. Yeah, he fell to Arizona. But thinking about receiver, because again, I still would consider a receiver sometime in this draft, absolutely, with the question of Tyreek Hill. Because let's say he does start. Now, again, when you had a healthy, focused Tyreek Hill, your team is better with Tyreek than it is without him. I will continue to say that. However, it's a question mark now, because can he stay on the field? Is he going to be focused? Do you trade him? Does he get in trouble? We don't know. So you know that more than likely, if it's not this year, next year, he may more than likely not be on this football team. So you need to prepare by possibly looking for a player who could come in and stay. Now, do not sleep on Nick Westbrook that we got out of Tennessee. I like him a lot. I'm very intrigued by him. Jalen Waddle was very good before Tyreek. I think Waddle could probably refill that role again. Malik Washington we took last year. But you could still look at it. A guy that I'm intrigued by in like the third round, fourth round possibly is Jaden Higgins. That's another big-bodied wide receiver. If that's the selling point for everybody, that's a guy to look for. I'm going to be very honest, and that might not be popular for some, but again, just this is me, watching film. I'm not going, oh, I hope he's bigger. I'm going to grade him bigger. No, you watch, you grade out, and you see how it plays out. I have Will Johnson and Barron graded a little higher than I do McMillan. So if I'm going BPA based off my board, like FinStanza saying, I would be going one of those two, whoever's that corner on the board. But that plays to what Chris Grier is saying. It's, what I'm saying, Evan, is, when he's saying, hey, BPA might be just that position of need. You know what I'm saying? So, if BPA is that corner and you're looking at Will Johnson out of Michigan, who he's a superstar corner in college, he looks like he's going to be a pro day one, or be an impact player day one, or should be, then you go get him, and guess what? You got your best player available, but you also got a player who's going to fill that need. Jede Barron, I've seen some people today amongst the community that's like, oh, I like Barron, but at 16. I like Barron, but if we trade him down, I like Barron, but not at 13. Let me just say this. He is worth the 13th pick. What do I love about Barron? He could play the slot. He can play the boundary. His motor, he plays sideline to sideline. He's physical. He would be a very good addition to this football team. And he's my number 2 corner behind Travis Hunter. Skunk Ape, good call, Bobby, but in my opinion, Higgins has gone in round 2. Fair enough. Hey, fair enough. I'm just going based off my grade when I was watching him, but I hear you. I think he's going up boards. He has great size, great potential. I love his motor. I'm a motor guy. I'm a size guy. I like him a lot. So Skunk, I think you're right on. I think you're right on, brother. DSG, nobody believes Ross is intimately involved in football decisions. He's just a corporate money guy. To that end, he's completed his job with the Dolphins franchise. Exactly. GMs and fans have different ideas what BPA is. Fans think BPA is more talented there, but that's not how teams mock their bands. Absolutely. Wise guy. Possibly Dolphins are positioning to sell the team. Not sure. Barron, I like Barron over Johnson due to Johnson's injuries. Johnson does have injury concerns. I'm with you on that. That is something that I consider. But I do, again, if you guys have a chance, watch Barron, man. I really like this kid. I really do. And if Miami picks him at 13, I know there's going to be some Dolphin fans who are going to be huffing and puffing and blowing the house down. Just give that kid an opportunity if that is the opportunity. But I understand Evan's point. Let's see here. And in regards of selling the team, Ross has stated time and time again that he's not really interested in selling the team. He's planning on giving it off to his daughter after he gets, leaves or passes away. Let me make sure. I want to read. Would you? There's something for quarterback. Those who want to get rid of quarterback. Would you rule out, regardless? Would you rule out, regardless of how the draft unfolds, the idea of taking a quarterback in round one that some of the national media has suggested? This is a great question that was asked him because Alex actually posted it to me on East Century Boys. What if Shedeur Sanders is sitting there at 13? So I guess that's where this is coming from. Chris Grier says, I would say we have our starting quarterback. So I wouldn't be looking into that. I wouldn't be looking to it. I never rule out anything. I never rule anything out, but I would not be looking to draft a quarterback in the first round. He did say, though, if I could pull that back up, and Evan, if you want to respond to that, you can as I look for this.
Well, I just want to tell you, did you see the news that Shedeur Sanders is not coming to the draft?
No, I did not see that. Is he going to stay in Colorado and watch it from there?
So if that's the case, I think he doesn't have a good feel. If a guy's going to be drafted in the top three,
Milroe is going. Milroe will be there.
No, if people think they're going to be drafted high, they're going to go to the draft. The fact that he's not showing up there, I think shows a little bit of a lack of, I'm doing my own thing. I'm primetime son. I would not touch Shedeur Sanders with a 10-foot pole. Wouldn't even go near him.
Well, this is let me.
If someone takes him in the top 5, it's a riskier pick than Tua with his bad hit.
But for you, that's based off character, off what you.
No, not based off character. His skill set at Colorado. What did they win? He's very talented, but he was the second best player on the team.
Sure.
Travis Hunter is. The reason Tua got drafted where he was because he won a national championship, talked to Nick Saban, went to Alabama. Here, Shedeur Sanders propped up because who his father is, how he was propped up by his father, and he had Travis freaking Hunter as his best defender and his best offensive player. He's not proving anything else. It's not like a skill set, like a Herbert, even like a Josh Allen went to Wyoming. A lot of these places, or Carson Wentz when he got drafted, or Jared Goff went to these not very popular schools, or Lamar Jackson went to Louisville, not popular school. He's an interesting talent, but his name recognition is what's drafting him high. Like, I don't see it. Like, I love Cam Ward also, but in any other year, Cam Ward is not the first quarterback picked in the draft. He's not. So, because right now, I think this is the one year where talent-wise, the quarterbacks are not the best talents in the draft. They're being drafted for need.
Well, this is one of these years where, it's a risk to take one early. I think Miami has done their homework on quarterbacks, so they've met with Jalen Milroe, who is going to, I say New York all the time because it's old-fashioned, but who is going to be in the green room on draft day. He'll be in Green Bay, which is interesting. We hear, Jackson Dart could go in round 1, could go as high in the top 10. Obviously, Josh Wingate had him going number 2 in our mock to Cleveland.
You know what number 1 for yours? You know what my number 1 fear in the draft is? And the Dolphins better be scared.
Who?
Mike Vrabel, who you and I wanted as a Dolphins coach for how long?
Yeah.
You don't think when he gets up, they're picking 3, right? They're picking 3?
No, they got 4.
4?
I had their pick. I had him going Abdul Carter.
If they get Abdul Carter,
yeah,
Tua is going to be running for his life.
Well, they've had a very good offseason. There's no doubt with who they've hired as their coach.
Even
what they've
Mason
been doing.
Graham, like honestly, like there's so many players that are sitting there for Mike Vrabel that they don't even have wide receivers. Like, let me ask you this: if you're Mike Vrabel, and at 4, You have Travis Hunter and Abdul Carter. Who do you take? Because imagine putting Travis Hunter opposite. You put Travis Hunter as a wide receiver, and you could put him opposite Christian Gonzalez. Holy cramoly, the Dolphins are in trouble.
Yeah.
So
Travis Hunter. Yeah.
The Dolphins have to hit. Like honestly, I would literally, if I'm being a homer now, right? You know, I've been a little down and more realistic on the Dolphins last season and all that. They have to hit home runs in this draft.
Yeah.
They cannot go with 3 picks in the top 100. They can't. They just can't. They have to have 4. They have to have at least 4 picks in the top 70. 3 picks in the top 60. It bothers me. They have to have another pick in the top 60, 70. It's bothering me to no end. If they go have 2, they have 2 picks and they have to wait till almost 100 for their third pick of the draft. It's a problem for me. It's a big problem for me.
So, what did I say? For me, in reality, like you were talking about Abdul Carter, maybe Travis Hunter.
Can I correct this? I said he was a first-round QB. I say he's not a top pick QB.
You're taking me the number 1 quarterback on a board.
Not the number 1. Bobby, put Cam Ward's skill set in the 2020 draft. You're taking Burrow. You're taking Love. I'm just saying, you could replay drafts all you want. I'm saying that Cam Ward this year he's the best quarterback available in this draft, but he's not the best talent in this draft. It's the same way when you and I go back and we look back at the Jake Long draft. Oh, why you take Matt Ryan? Because Jake Long was a better talent than Matt Ryan in that draft.
And if Jake Long would have stayed healthy, if he would have stayed healthy through his career, he would have been he'd probably go down as he'd probably be in a Hall of Fame situation. He was that great.
Laramie Tunsil in 2016 was one of the best picks. That's probably the best pick in my mind that Crier's ever made. Yeah.
I mean, look at him now. I mean, obviously, though, now playing for Washington, he's been traded for multiple firsts. I would say, though, if in my scenario, though, realistically, Cam Ward goes number 1. Cleveland goes. I believe Cleveland could go Abdul Carter to pair him with Myles Garrett, and number 3, the Giants with Jameis Winston and Russell Wilson. I see them going.
Jameis Winston, Russell Wilson. Jameis Winston, and Russell Wilson are in New York.
That's what I said. The Giants.
No, you said because sorry, no. Who goes with him?
I'm telling you where my mock is current. The Giants.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you the reason why I don't think they would go quarterback because they got Jameis and they got Russell. Fine. So that's where I would see a Travis Hunter going at that point. Now, could I see them going quarterback later? Could I see them possibly trading back up into the first round to take Shador? I could see that, but I don't see them going Shador or any other quarterback at 3. But that's just me. Anyway, in regards of quarterback, because you were saying Miami not going for quarterback. One thing I found interesting in that question they talked about, they said somebody asked him to Chris Grier, I believe this is your 10th draft. You've genuinely filled most positions with players that you felt could not put you in a desperate spot going into the draft. Addressing those needs this year, completely different approach where you left glaring holes. Oh, how he's filled up positions of need in free agency and not been desperate in the draft, where this year is different. He's left glaring holes on the roster. What created this change? Physiological approach. I know you mentioned that you felt like it aligns with the areas of strength in the draft. I know you have 10 picks, but you only have so many premium picks. He says, it's a good question. For us, we feel good with our scouting staff and what we've done in our ability to be able to fill some holes with the free agency like we've done with the guys that we've added. The strength of this draft was a little bit of the reason why we felt like, okay, we are going to need NFL-ready players. There's no hey, let's hope this guy is ready. These guys are going to be forced into playing, and that's a good thing. So we just have to be right on the person and the character guys that we bring in here. That's what they're going to do. That there was really no grand plan of doing it. It was just as we were looking through, because we really always look into a year into the future. God. And it is what I found interesting. He says, like when you're looking at the quarterback evaluations and then go, who's the next class of college player? So you're always trying to get a peek at what next year's draft class looks like in strength. So for us, it just aligned to what made sense to us. to invest in some younger players at those positions and then fill in the rest of the post-draft through free agency. So that part right there, when he says, when you're looking at the quarterback evaluations, and then you say, who's the next class of college players? So maybe I'm just reading too much into it, but that screamed to me, and I'm, it's not about that, but that right there, because we brought it up, or was brought up, was that Miami might have looked at this year's class at quarterbacks just as, and they're evaluating. They had lunch with Quinn Ewers. They've talked with Curtis Warwick. They've met with Tyler Shaw. They've met with Jalen Milroe, Dylan Gabriel. They've done their due diligence with quarterbacks, but they may be looking and go, hey, we're not going to spend a high pick on a quarterback this year because we have our eyes on next year. So that kind of screamed that to me. In regards of offensive line, they asked, will Patrick Paul be your starting left tackle? And do you intend to sign a challenger? Did you sign Liam Eichenberg with the thought or thinking that he will again be your starting right guard or just a swing guard or a backup center? He says, in terms of Patrick Paul, yes, he will be our starter at left tackle and get the first crack at doing it. We signed Larry Borum, who we felt really good about. We really like him in free agency. Liam Eichenberg will come in and provide swing versatility, and he will compete for a job. He's not promised anything, and he knows there's going to be competition in it or for it. What were your thoughts on what about Patrick Paul, and then of course the reasoning of signing Eichenberg?
Patrick Paul for me had to be the left tackle this year, whether people agree or not. You drafted a guy in the second round, whether it's Butch Berry, Frank Smith, Mike McDaniel, whoever wanted him, they see something in him. You have to give him a chance. The guy wasn't given a chance last year. Liam Eichenberg, I feel, is a marriage that needed to be broken just because of the level of hatred that the fan base has for Chris Grier. I think Liam Eichenberg might actually surpass it because everyone remembers we actually traded up to get him, and he's played every position and has not been good in any of them. But he's willing to be a reliable person. If he's your 8th, 9th, or 10th option on the offensive line, I don't care. Wants to be our backup center, I don't care. If the guy wants to be miserable, because I believe Liam Eichenberg in a fresh start, similar to Noah Iwanagani, similar to Mike Gesicki, like players who move on, they'll take a year or two, but they'll find their next opportunity somewhere else. I feel we all needed a clean breakup, and I think this is a Chris Grier unwilling to give up on this kid. I have no idea why. Like, you weren't willing to do anything you can to keep Van Ginkel, Wilkins, and Hunt, but you're willing to do everything you can to keep Liam around, which I don't understand. So, if I'm Butch Berry, why would I want this guy back in my room? So, for me, Patrick Paul, I'm fine with. Patrick Paul, if Butch Berry's as good as he says he is, and Frank Smith actually shows he actually does a job for the Miami Dolphins versus just having a title, I'm fine with Patrick Paul. Liam Eichenberg for me is just a name on the roster. If he's starting, we know that Chris Grier and Mike McDaniel literally are senile as the owner.
So something else interesting that I was reading on here, and I did listen, but I wanted to go back and find it. Give me with ruffling the papers here. The question that was asked to him, and he kind of talks about working with the different coaches, and I want you to hear this. This was towards the end of the press conference, but they asked him, with 10 years running the draft for this team, you were the former director of college scouting. What did you learn about the process and maybe about yourself that will help you in 2025? Let me get to the most interesting part, because he's like, oh, that's a good question, blah, 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 blah. But he says, I've had 3 different coaches here. It's interesting. They all have different types of players they like. It's the adjustment, but I think the one thing that's common is just finding those guys that love football. They're tough kids that are competitive and love ball. I think there's sometimes when maybe I veered a little bit. Guys were like, hey, we're just going to take the athlete or something or whatever trait this player has, and you're kind of like, okay, we'll make it work. Sometimes it does. It doesn't always. So I think we do a lot of work vetting backgrounds and personalities of players. I think that plays a big role in the success of people. because like you said, these players read everything that is said about them. You guys know. And for those guys who handle it, it takes a special player to be able to handle it because they want to react to everything someone says about them. So myself, this is something I highlighted too. I highlighted the first part, and this whole thing I highlighted here at the end. So myself, I think for me, sometimes maybe I deferred too much. And I've talked about that. And that's probably one thing I've learned that I've gotten more along in my years, that the pushback is great. And that's what's great with Mike, Coach McDaniel. We don't always agree on everything, but we always come into alignment to where we get to help the Miami Dolphins. So it's been really good working with him. And that was the end of the press conference. So I found that very and I am it's not me going defending or anything of that nature. But like the postseason press conference, this part right here was the most real answer you could probably get about his situation. Is first of all, it speaks it's not a good look to say I've worked with 3 different coaches here. That means you haven't hired good coaches. But at the same time, where he's like, I don't know what's the deal in that scouting room or his office where he's saying here, they want they want tough kids that competitive and love football, but then there's times where he has to veer from that philosophy because there's guys who tell him, hey man, we need to get this kid because this kid's a good athlete, or this guy, he does this special. And so Chris Grier, all right, we'll make it work. Let's go ahead and get him. He doesn't fit what we want to do. And then he says there, sometimes I defer too much. And that's probably one thing I've learned and I've gotten along in my years, that he's, that maybe he wasn't good with pushback, where a guy, Evan, I say, hey man, I really like this Will Johnson. And you go, oh, but Bobby, man, we really need that McMillan. There's a pushback. That's great. Okay. It's, and maybe he goes, even though he might not feel maybe McMillan is that guy, he may go, you know what, Evan, let's go ahead and get McMillan. Guess what? Now McMillan sucks. He's a horrible draft pick. And guess who we're blaming? Are we blaming Evan the scout, or are we going to blame the GM? We're looking at. But what I'm saying is that was a real answer. So, or that seemed like the most honest answer he could give. And I'm not saying that to defend him or nothing. But it spoke volumes to me. So hearing that, and you could say whatever you want to say, and then just answer this part. Hearing that, what does that make you think about what you're hearing there at that point of the press conference?
That Chris Grier, my frustration, that Chris Grier is a yes man. We all knew that Brian Flores and Stephen Ross and Mike McDaniel have a lot more control than he does, meaning that he wants to appease them. My frustration with Chris Grier is that he is influenced by other people under him, or people who don't know anything about football. He needs people around him who are more firm and more demanding at his level. But at this point, if he told me tomorrow, if he said today, this is my draft, every pick is my responsibility, I'm going to pick the best players, but I know him. So the same way, he wanted to trade Calais Campbell last year. He got influenced not to. There's a lot. I don't know if Tua was his pick. People say that Tua wasn't his pick; it was Ross's. We don't know, and I believe that. I don't know. That's the point. No one knows what to believe. The problem is that because he's the center point of Ross has not been here since 2000. McDaniel hasn't been here since 2000. The one consistent is him. And he's had 3 head coaches. So because of that, we don't trust him because he's letting himself be influenced. It's like you hire the employee, but the employee ends up being your boss. That's not the way that works. There is a pecking order. At least if he had the gall to come out there and say, this is my job, this is my pick, these are my responsibility. He then says it's a collaboration. No. Pick your players. Do you think Harry Roseman goes to Nick Sirianni and says, I'm going to go get this player? Of course not. If he did that, he'd be fired too. So my point is, to me, Chris Grier is a nice person. I don't wish anything ill to Chris Grier. My number one reason I don't like Chris Grier is because of Mike McDaniel. For me, the fact that he hired that dweeb and ruined the last 3 years of coaching, where the guy didn't know what down it was, can't get plays on in time. didn't adjust for backup quarterbacks. In the end, I always have had an issue. My issue with Flo, my issue with McDaniel had to do with, in the end, I'm more convinced that the players on this field are players that were selected by Mike McDaniel and Brian Flores and Adam Gase, not players that were picked by Chris Grier. That's my problem. My fear is someone's going to get in his ear. Because if he's the type of person I think he is, he loves the premium position. I don't think going to get Jalen Ramsey, I think that was his idea. I think going to get Byron Jones was his idea. So I expect a Will Johnson. If I hear the name of Kelvin Banks, or I see an edge rusher, or I see Tyler Booker.
Abdul Carter
won't fall that far.
Okay, but
I would take him.
Okay. Go ahead. Keep going. I'm sorry.
I see a guy who's not a top 3 pick that fell. So if I see a Kelvin Banks who people have issues with, even though he's a top draft pick, we don't need him specifically right now. You can go get someone. I forget his name. Jose. I can't pronounce the offensive tackle's name. Everyone is mocking him to go to the Dolphins at 48. His name is.
Is it the guy Jonah Savanea?
Yeah, Jonah Savanea.
I love him. He's one of my top rated guys.
Yes, but he's okay in the second round for me.
Yes.
But as a first round pick, if I see an offensive tackle, if I see a guard, if I see an edge rusher that's not Abdul Carter, if Mason Graham falls, I'm fine. I wouldn't go take Membu. I would not take him in the first round. You need to go get a premium position. A premium position to me in this draft in the first round is Tate McMillan, Abdul Carter, Will Johnson, Jahdae Barron. Those are the kind of players I want to see.
I got you.
I don't want to see Mason Graham even also. I know tackles, but that's a guy who's a very good tackle who you would fill a need next to Zach Sealer in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
I do not want to see an offensive lineman. I do not want to see a linebacker. I do not want to see anyone. Eminyori's nice, but if you're going to go get an Eminyori or a Malachi Stark, something like that, you're trading back.
Well, and I, what he said about safety.
You want to know what Yucca McMillan, big body wide receiver that the Dolphins haven't had in forever, who gets separation. Trust me, you take McMillan on your.
Well,
team.
again, I like
McMillan.
I like McMillan. I do like McMillan. Again, I think you could get a good size receiver, maybe in this round 2 or round 3 if you
Will
needed to.
Johnson's gone and Alshon Gentry is gone, and you have a choice between
top safety for me is Amenwari as well. Skunk.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So
I'm sorry.
Let me ask you though, if you have the choice, if McMillan's sitting there and Gentry's gone, let's say Barron's gone. Let's say Barron goes early because someone really wants that corner. And let's say the corners have a run on corners and you don't see Will Johnson and you don't see Jahdae Barron there. If I see Tate McMillan sitting there over Nick Eminyori or a Calvin Banks or something like that, I'm taking Tate McMillan. Why not? You need that. Like, you take best player in the draft and then you figure it out later. Because I guarantee you there will be the majority of the fans on this team will basically say, yay, we could finally trade Tyreek Hill. Because that's one thing about the Dolphins right now, the fans. There are 3 things they want in life. 4 things. Most of us want McDaniel gone. If not all, want Grier gone. Most of us want Ross to sell the team. And most of us are sick of Tyreek Hill. Those are the 4 things that if people could open their eyes one day and someone found out tomorrow that Ross has sold the team, Ross is probably number 4. The top 3 are trade Tyreek Hill, fire McDaniel, and Grier. Those are what people want. So if you have opportunities to go do something, Grier can redeem himself a little bit in this if he can go get a home run in the draft. If he can somehow finagle 2 first-round picks who are day 1 starters on the defensive side of the ball, or 1 on the offense and 1 on the defense, the Dolphin fans will forgive him for a little while. My fear is, and you're going to laugh probably when I say this, in the end, it doesn't matter. The reason also I want to go very defensive heavy in the draft, is because I don't trust Mike McDaniel on the offensive side of the ball. Any weapon you give him, because he banged the table for Jalen Wright. He banged the table. Didn't use him. He relied on Devon Achane way too much. So when you hear me teasing you and DSG and everybody about him being a mid running back, I do it to troll. But at the same time, I do it because they used him in his skill set. It's outside, and as a pass catching receiver. And on first down, up the middle. You're trying to use him on third down. You're trying to use him on fourth down. You're trying to use it doesn't work. It just doesn't work. And McDaniel kept on going to the same well every single time. And with a small running back, you're going to get him hurt. My problem, like I told you, I have a lot of issues with Chris Grier. But in the end, I need a head coach who will mind his business. And Mike McDaniel is too big for his britches and has proven nothing to me. So it doesn't matter what Grier does. So Grier needs to go hit a home run on the defensive side of the ball this year. Because I'm not worried about the offense. It's going to be what it's going to be as long as McDaniel has the play call sheet in his hand. So at least the arm Weaver with good corners, good edge rushers, good linebackers, a good defensive line, and good safeties. Like, I want to spend money on the offensive line. I don't care about the offense at this point. Because unless Genty's sitting there, but who knows? I feel bad for Genty if he has to be in the Mike McDaniel scheme. He'll probably forget to use him.
So, in regard to what you said about like a Calvin Banks, first of all, that's not a knock on the player.
No, it's not fit for us. It's not fit for us.
It was just my thing is that you could get a starting quality guy in round 2 at 48. That's where I'm looking offensive line. There's going to be two. There's going to be a handful of premium talent sitting at 13 to grab an offensive guard. Or in Calvin Banks, he can play tackle, he can play guard, but I think he could go as high as Jacksonville, to be honest, if Hunter's not there. But again, Membo, Campbell, Banks, all sitting there. I wouldn't do it either if there's another guy on there. Any of the guys we've talked about, I would go at BPA, and that'd be one of those premium positions. Impact positions. And then in round 2, that's when I'm looking at Gray Zabel. I'm looking at Tate Ratledge. I'm looking at Savanea. I'm looking at that's when I start filling out my O line. Because I don't know if there's a player. I don't mean in a bad way. There's not one player that I'm going, I have to have this guy from the offensive line. Because I think if you go get that guy in the offensive line, whomever that may be, you're missing out on a player probably more talented. You're forcing to take a player in at that point. You're missing out. As not that Will Campbell and Membo or Banks aren't going to be great or good. But you're to leave a better player on the board if you pass up on one of those guys for that guy. That's why I say that. Again, though, but if you're like talking to me and you're saying, "Hey, Bobby, Will Johnson, Barron, McMillan." If any of those guys are on the board, I'm, we could say different. You give me Barron, give me McMillan. Let's say, let me see if there's a guy that I could think of.
Let me ask you.
Tyler Warren.
Let me ask you.
If you got, let's say, one of those 3 guys, Tyler Warren, McMillan, or Barron, I'm going Barron. I'm going Barron with that pick.
But you won't be. Well, let me ask you. Do you think that Chris Grier is open to trading Jalen Ramsey because he already has in his head that he's going to get a top corner in the draft, and he thinks that he just wants to?
I think it's it. Yeah, I think he, again, there's a drop off. There's some decent corners. Don't get me wrong. After the top 3, there are, but there is a drop off after Barron. In my opinion, a bit of a drop off. That you don't want to get a guy in the first round, but then you're in the second round.
Patrick Surtain, you want your Sauce Gardner.
100%. Again,
Quentin Mitchell, you want one of those players.
Absolutely, you need to get one of these guys. And again, I was thinking that before even there was any kind of talk of getting rid of Ramsey. I'm looking at corner. I'm like, there's too many good corners there. I don't believe in Cam Smith right now. And I'm going to be rooting for him. I hope he comes in and lights it the hell up and he lives up to his draft potential and 100%. But there's nothing he has shown so far as a Miami Dolphin that tells me he could be that guy.
Except
So
he's
even
injured prone.
before losing Ramsey or potentially losing Ramsey, I was already on this mindset that, and again, it's if they weren't BPA, I wouldn't be forcing myself to draft one of those guys or saying pounding the banging the table for him. But the fact that the matter is that these guys are damn good players, and you're not going to you should not pass up on a damn good player who also fills that need up, but could be BPA. That's just how I feel. Let me ask you: is there any? I'll say I think McMillan the obvious answer, but
No, I was teasing
did
about
talk
McMillan.
about
The only reason I mentioned about McMillan was if he's sitting there and a lot of the other players, Johnson goes early, Jade Barron, because always like I don't want an Alex. Okay, the one player that always reminds me of a player that was taken was the most wasted pick for our team. And I think you were watching the draft when it happened. Like when the Raiders went with Alex Leatherwood. Like I remember that year, and there were so many picks around him. You have to take the best player. Stop reaching. Because this is not a superstar draft, but there's so many good players you can get who are day one starters, who are 10-year, 12-year players.
Let me ask you this question, and just to ask, because he did bring up possibly, he did say, because they said trading back, of course, you get more picks, probably 1-2 more picks. But he also said, hey, if there's a player there that we really like, they might explore trading up. And that just doesn't mean round 1. That could be in round 2. That could be 3. They've done it before. Let's just stick to round 1 for a minute. And that's why I said maybe it's McMillan. But is there a player, even though there's a lot of needs, and I know there'll be Dolphin fans in here saying, don't do it because we have way too many needs, but he keeps bringing up street free agents. But is there any 1 or 2 players that if you see, for instance, they get past that New England, let's say it's Jacksonville, let's go 5. They're in that 5 range. What player would you be like, if Miami traded up, you're not going to hate it? Is there any one player that you would be like, you would do that trade up for, or you wouldn't hate a trade up for that one player?
In the draft?
Yeah. Is there a player or a couple players? It don't matter. But it's like if the
only 2 players in the top 10, the only 2 players I'm worried that I would take as players I would go after that are to me are the superstars of this draft, because Carter has a bit of an injury history, is Hunter and Genty. Those are the only 2 players I would go get that are
all right. So Miami trade. Let's say Miami works out a deal, and for whatever reason, because I think Genty doesn't. I think he could go possibly to the Raiders at 6, or he could. I think Norris could trade up for Shedeur Sanders at 6, and then maybe go to 9. Genty, Campbell. I mean Hunter. I could see falling as far to 5, right? So let's say Miami trades up and they get a Genty. You're happy with that. You're like, we got a player. Okay. So, and I see Octane Genius says Genty as well. Skunk Ape says Travis Hunter or Membo for him. Depends on the price though. So, okay. So see, to me, I'll be honest. First off, I love Ashton Genty, but there's a lot of decent running backs in this draft. And I don't get me wrong, Genty's Genty, but in regards to Hampton out of North Carolina, I like Ollie Gordon, who met with Miami recently. But I'm just saying, hold on. Just talking about running backs here. There's other guys. Receiver wise, we know a name that was brought up earlier, Matthew Golden. I'm huge on Luther Burden. Again, Jaden Higgins, Arande Gadsden, those guys later on. Not Golden could go in round 1. Obviously, I think he went in round 1 in ours. He did. He went to Denver on OTC. Travis Hunter. If not, I'm a fan of Genty, but I think like that Genty would be like, hey, if he's in that top 10, 11, 12 range, that's, obviously we're 13. Then you could, if you really think he's that phenom, then you do that. He's not going to fall. I don't think he falls past Dallas if he's there. However, I will say, or Chicago, Travis Hunter would probably be that guy. And I wouldn't hate Abdul Carter. Abdul Carter, again, you pair him back with Chop Robinson. You don't know, Bradley Chubb and Jalen Phillips, especially, who I love, can't stay healthy. They can't stay healthy. And we're giving them all this money. And you're supposed to, I think Phillips is coming on a contract year. So, edge rusher should not be like kind of thrown away, because reality is if Phillips gets hurt again and then Bradley Chubb is out after next season, then we have an issue.
What's your reaction if let's say they don't move, and after the first 2 rounds, the 2 names on the board are Jahdae Barron and Trey Amos. Are you what is your
say that one more time? I'm so sorry.
If
say that again.
If your draft board after the Dolphins pick at 48, so they keep 13 and 48. If their 2 players they picked were Jahdae Barron at 13 and Trey Amos at 48, you're saying what about Chris Grier?
Oh, if they go 2 corners?
If they solidify their corners in the first 2 picks, are you upset, or are you basically saying you only need truly 1 corner, and then on the second you need to go get your D tackle?
I would be excited for I would be excited for pick 13, and some people see Amos as going in round 1.
He's ranked for 47. Or how about put it this way? Not corner. If you see Xavier Watts and if you see Xavier Watts and Jahdae Barron, or you see Will Johnson and Xavier Watts in your top 2, you're happy?
Man, you're getting me all fired up, dude. You kidding me? Xavier Watts.
Do you trade up if you're 48? Do you trade 98 to move up into the 30s to get a early second rounder, to get a Watts, or if Minori falls? Do you give up 98? Do you give up your 3rd and not pick until the hundreds to go get here? I'm going to ask the thing. Do you give up your 3rd round pick this year, 98?
This is why we haven't seen each other really, honestly, since preseason. I mean, the postseason. You notice he says, "I'm going to ask you a question," and it went into 3 questions. It keeps adding. It's like it's changing up. If there's 2 corners, wait, now it's a corner and a safety. No, but wait, no. If it's this guy and this guy, it's like, can we just get to the one?
Mary Miami Dolphins. Do you with 2 premier starters on the defense?
Hell yeah.
Whether it's a safety and a safety and a corner, a corner and a D tackle. But are you willing to go get those stars between 13 and 40 or 13 and 35 and give up 98?
Okay. First off, if you get, Amon Rari's my number 1 safety. I love that.
Watts is great.
But if you were to come away and pick, and I know a lot of people are going to be hit, they go, what about offensive line? What about D tackle? First off, you could get a decent tackle.
You can still go get Will Hernandez. You can pay Brandon.
But if you come away with Barron, and because that was your question, but and I know Skunk says Barron or Johnson, but if you come away with Barron, let's say Barron or Johnson at 13, let's just be fair. Let's say you come away with that, right? And then you turn around and you draft Xavier Watts at 48, right? That's your first question. Let me just say, I'm ecstatic. I'm happy with that because I still like Malifonwu out of Detroit. I think he could, if he's healthy, he could be very good. He could be decent. But I'm very excited at that point because I think Watts is good. But and you talk about trading from 98 up to secure one of those 2 guys if you had to. At that point, I think I would be more comfortable. The only reason I would be more comfortable just letting the draft fall at that point, at 48. Unless, if I'm trading 98, I better have a deal for Jalen Ramsey available, because then that would give me another 3rd rounder, or you know what I mean, in that draft. Because if you're okay, let's package 48 and 98, we move up, and now we get ourselves that safety, or we go get maybe that guard or tackle that's still sitting there, maybe a guard more than likely, or D tackle, because there should be some decent guys at the top of round 2. I'm good with that if we've moved Ramsey and we got an additional 3rd or maybe as high as a 2nd. Then I'm cool with that. But if you're telling me at 48 and 13, Evan, I'm not. I know they're going to. We know both. We both know that there will be people on the channel and watching the show who are going to be pissed that Miami didn't go offensive line with 48 or 13. But you got to think about the player. And again, if you come away with that, what looks like, because corner could now be the weakest link on this football team right now. It is, in my opinion, it is the weakest link on this football team. Offensive line is behind that, but offensive line, again, You like you said, Will Hernandez.
Guards are not soft positions.
But that's what I'm saying. You again, there's guys in this draft in 3, 4, whatever that you could put. I say Ty Ratledge out of Georgia, Dylan Fairchild. That's another guy. Again, here Skunk Ape says 98 is a comp pick. I would easily move pick 98 and Ramsey to get back into a third and get into the third. So yeah, 100%. So we need bodies. But again, I've said this before and I'll say this again. And I think Grier hit the nail on the head. And I think that because that's the way they think. He talked about moving up. And again, he's not just talking about round 1. I think he's talking about other rounds too, that could be a possibility. But again, you go, but oh my God, but we need so many players. Guess what? Evan just said, we need starters. We need starters. Barron Johnson, right? One of those two guys, Jade Barron or Will Johnson, that's a starter. Xavier Watts, Nick Amenrari, let's say Malachi Starks falls potentially, right? Because he's fallen down boards. Even though I think he's good, he's fallen. But if he falls, that's 2 starters. Now you got 2 starters. But we can't get rid of 98. Well, guess what? 98 might not be a starter. But if you trade 98 and you package Ramsey, or you trade 98 to move up to back it up, and then you go get another player, now you got 3 starters. And then you want to get starters. That's when you go to look in the free agency. Acorns. You think of the Chad Pennington thing. Remember, we were going to roll into one that season with Josh McCown starting and Chad Henne being your backup. What did Miami do? Chad Pennington got cut and they signed Chad Pennington. That happens. So Skunk Ape says you're correct, bro. Count Ramsey out. He isn't going to be on the roster game 1. That makes quarterback time.
It just hit me. If you listen to what Chris Grier said, Liam Mike, let's do it quickly. Who's your starting right tackle?
Austin Jackson.
Who's your starting center?
Aaron Brewer.
Who's your starting right guard?
James Daniels.
Who's your starting left tackle?
Patrick Paul.
He said very clearly that Liam Eichenberg is going to compete for a job.
A job,
which means the first 2 picks will not be on the offensive line. He might, if Dylan Fairchild's sitting there at 98 and you don't move 98, I go take him. I think he'll win the job. But he is going to make that position a position that, unless something falls in his lap, where somehow at 48, Jose Savania sitting there, but I don't think he's going to do it. I really think he's going to go in the 3rd or 4th round, and use those picks to maybe draft a guard or a left tackle. Or what the Dolphins typically do is get an offensive tackle who can play both, who can move around, because Dolphins never actually draft position. They always move around on the offensive line. The first 2 picks are going to be premier positions. They are going to be edge rusher, defensive tackle. Well, they're going to be the key positions. It's going to be corner, defensive tackle, safety, wide receiver, running back. Those are going to be his flash in the pan positions. Offense, people cannot. They might be upset. They do not need to draft right now. The way it's constructed, if you look at the construction, there are 3 positions: safety, corner, defensive tackle, and safety before you need an offensive guard. Right now,
there you go.
Because you can go get a Brandon Scherf if you really want, a Will Hernandez. You can go trade. The same way, remember we got Dan Feeney, and the next thing you know, we traded him for a 6th? You can go get an offensive lineman who's a starter. They didn't think Mekhi Becton was drafted as a tackle. When he got signed by the Eagles, they didn't know they were going to put him at guard. They thought he was a bust at one point. They developed him, and they found a way to make him work. Right? There's always ways to make it work. Our problem is the scheme of how Mike McDaniel calls plays. I'm more concerned about the center position. I like Brewer as a player. If I was them, I would move Brewer to left guard and draft a center. That's what I would do. I think our center is too small. But I'm not investing my top 2 picks in the draft on a guard. Sorry, I am not sure. Because outside of Lane Johnson, none of the players in the many years that they drafted, the Eagles, the envy of the league on the offensive line, none of the picks they had, outside of Lane Johnson 15 years ago, 12, 13 years ago, none of them were picked in the top 2 rounds. They're all 3rd, 4th, 5th round picks. All of them.
There you go. Let me just say, as we are almost at an hour and a half here at the wrap up, but this has been a lot of fun. I'm thankful for everyone who's watching right now. And almost 120 odd people watching wherever you're watching from. We appreciate you. If you are anywhere other than YouTube, hop on over to YouTube, hit that subscribe button. We appreciate you watching. Octane Genius agree, but Big C after the third. Craig Seaver, I would love Johnson and Watts. I would feel better about our secondary. 100%, Craig. I'm with you, my man. I will say, though, guys, those who are watching who didn't know already, this will be our third annual Pro Football Draft live coverage show that's coming up. We are going to be live Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Let me go ahead and throw this up here. So there you go. We got the Pro Football Draft live coverage show sponsored by Caneswear. We'll start Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, Friday at 7 p.m., and Saturday at 12 p.m., covering every pick, every round, instant analysis, live reaction. Of course, we'll be highlighting Dolphins picks, but we're going to talk every pick. Myself, Josh Wingate, Coach Vogel, FinStanza. You got Will Petrone of 305 Sports Now. You got Steve Malloy of Real Talk Fins Talk. The Fish Tank Hank, everyone. The majority of people will be involved somehow, somewhere, some way. It'll be a great show. And again, Caneswear is sponsoring all 3 days of the live coverage of the NFL draft here on FTSN. For one lucky winner each day of the draft, you got to be watching and you got to be commenting, just like what you guys are doing right now with Skunk and Mick and DSG and Chris. Chris, great to see you. For those who are tuning in, you'd be watching the draft with us. You're watching live on TV. You're reacting as the picks are going down. At the end of the night, we will pick a winner to win a gift card to go to Caneswear. And, I mean, they got great Dolphins gear. They got Marlins, Panthers, Heat, Inter Miami. So if you're a Miami sports fan and you want anything Miami, they are the place to go. They are located at 2655 South University Drive in Davie, Florida. They got beautiful Miami Hurricanes, Ed Reed, and oh my gosh, Sean Taylor jerseys that just came in. Beautiful jerseys that just came in. They got great stuff. Go check them out. If you're anywhere other than South Florida, like FinStanza's in Canada, I'm in Tennessee, go to caneswear.com.
I'm paying the tariff.
I'm
not paying the tariff.
Stop it. Fast shipping, awesome stuff. Don't go there. But anyway, but go check out Caneswear, man, and join us on that draft night to talk the draft. Again, today is Tuesday, FinStanza. So tomorrow we got the On Deck Baseball podcast with Russ Morgan. He'll catch up on Major League Baseball. That's at 7:30 Eastern Time. And then the Caneswear podcast, we just shouted them out. They're live at 9. And then Thursday, East Century Boys with me and Alex. Friday, the check down. Saturday, this weekend I'll be crazy. Saturday, FinStanza. Got Fins Talk today with Fish Tank at noon. And then I believe at 5 Eastern, I will be doing No Holds Barred with Josh Kimmel. We'll be doing the WrestleMania preview for night 1. Then Sunday got on the clock with the guys talking the draft. And then at 5 o'clock Eastern that day, I'm back for No Holds Barred for a recap of night 1 and a preview of night 2 of WrestleMania. So I am just rolling in the weekend after I got the draft. We got 5 hours here, 5 hours there, 6 hours the other day. So very busy here in FTSN. So I would greatly appreciate for all those who are tuning in right now. I have 117 people looking. And if you're watching after the show, thank you so much. Do me a favor, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, share the show. We appreciate you guys. FinStanza, any wrapping, any final thoughts before we wrap this up?
I'm here to support anything you need this upcoming weekend. Happy Easter, happy Passover to anybody watching.
Thank you.
No, it's great to be back. Last week was a lot of fun with Greg and Brett. I'm around for draft coverage. You know, I'm going to give my instant reaction to all that because my dream has always been to draft a head coach and a general manager within the draft. If we could always do it, it would always be great to be able to trade a draft pick for a general manager or a pick or a coach or something. That'd be nice. But no, I'm having a blast. This is a lot of fun. I love the new people in there. Skunk Cape, you're great. DSG, this is great. Mick, Chris, it's great to see you. Craig, Octane Genius, a lot of great people watching the show tonight. So I really appreciate you guys supporting us.
100%.
I have my commitment. I have not bought one piece of Dolphins gear since the season in months since I was last in Florida. If the Dolphins make, I will buy something from Caneswear live on air and pay the tariff if I'm satisfied. If I can give Chris Grier an A grade of the draft on day 3.
There you go. So to those who don't tune in, first off, happy Passover to FinStanza. Easter to those who celebrate, like myself. Thank you, Craig. Appreciate all of you guys. Thank you so much. Like and subscribe. And most importantly, Dolphin fans, it may look like it's hard, but always, most importantly, fins up. See you guys next time.